President-elect Donald Trump is wasting no time in building his new administration. Key appointments have been announced, signaling a return to familiar faces and policy priorities. Among the most significant picks is Mike Waltz, a Republican congressman and former Green Beret, as National Security Advisor. This appointment, alongside others, offers a glimpse into Trump's strategic vision for his second term. Waltz's selection as National Security Advisor is particularly noteworthy. This crucial role does not require Senate confirmation, giving Trump a free hand in choosing a trusted confidant. Waltz's military background and hawkish stance on foreign policy align with Trump's own worldview. His appointment suggests a renewed focus on perceived threats from China, Russia, and Iran, as well as a commitment to strengthening American military might. While Waltz's appointment has garnered significant attention, it is just one piece of the puzzle. Trump is also reportedly considering Marco Rubio for Secretary of State and Kristi Noem for Homeland Security Secretary. These potential picks further underscore Trump's preference for experienced politicians with strong conservative credentials. The composition of Trump's national security team sends a clear message to the world. America is back, and it will not hesitate to assert its interests on the global stage. The coming months will reveal the full extent of this approach, but one thing is certain: Trump is determined to leave his mark on American foreign policy. Mike Waltz's appointment as National Security Advisor is no surprise to those familiar with his background. A decorated Green Beret with multiple combat tours in Afghanistan, Waltz brings first-hand experience in dealing with complex security threats. But Waltz is more than just a soldier. He is a scholar warrior with a deep understanding of international relations and strategic thinking. After graduating from West Point and serving in the Army, Waltz earned a doctorate in international relations from Harvard University. He then taught at West Point and worked as a defense policy advisor in the George W. Bush administration. This combination of academic credentials and real-world experience makes him uniquely qualified for the challenges of the National Security Advisor role. Waltz's time in Congress has further honed his policy expertise. As a member of the House Armed Services Committee and the House Foreign Affairs Committee, he has been a vocal advocate for increased military spending and a more assertive foreign policy. He has been particularly critical of China's growing influence and has called for a tougher stance against Beijing. Waltz's background as a soldier, scholar, and politician has prepared him for the demanding role of National Security Advisor. He is known for his sharp intellect, his strong convictions, and his ability to articulate complex issues in a clear and concise manner. These qualities will be essential as he navigates the intricacies of international diplomacy and national security threats. Mike Waltz's views on national security are shaped by his belief in American exceptionalism. He sees China, Russia, and Iran as primary threats. Waltz views China as the most significant long-term challenge. He calls for a comprehensive strategy to counter China's influence. This includes strengthening military presence and forging closer ties with allies. Waltz is wary of Russia's intentions, particularly in Eastern Europe. He supports providing military aid to Ukraine. Iran, in Waltz's view, is a state sponsor of terrorism. He supported Trump's withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal. Waltz's hawkish stance extends to global terrorism. He believes the U.S. must combat terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Mike Waltz's appointment as National Security Advisor signals a continuation and potentially an intensification of Trump's America First foreign policy. Waltz's worldview aligns closely with Trump's on key issues, particularly the need to prioritize American interests above all else. Waltz has been a vocal supporter of Trump's foreign policy decisions, including the withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal, the relocation of the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, and the imposition of tariffs on Chinese goods. He shares Trump's skepticism of multilateral institutions and his belief in bilateral diplomacy. Like Trump, Waltz is critical of past U.S. foreign policy, which he views as too interventionist and too willing to sacrifice American interests for the sake of global cooperation. He argues that the U.S. should focus on its own security and prosperity and should avoid entangling alliances that do not directly benefit the American people. Waltz's appointment suggests that Trump intends to double down on his America First agenda in his second term. With Waltz at his side, Trump is likely to pursue a more assertive and confrontational foreign policy, one that prioritizes American power and seeks to reshape the global order to America's advantage. Section 5. From Battlefield to Briefing Room, Waltz's journey through Republican ranks. Mike Waltz's path to becoming National Security Advisor is marked by a steady ascent through the ranks of Republican politics, fueled by his military credentials and his hawkish foreign policy views. His journey reflects the evolving nature of the Republican Party, where military service and a strong national defense have become central tenets. After leaving active duty, Waltz remained engaged in national security issues, working as a defense contractor and a television commentator. He became increasingly involved in Republican politics, serving as a foreign policy advisor to then-Governor Jeb Bush and later to Senator Marco Rubio. In 2018, Waltz decided to run for Congress himself. He won a competitive race in Florida's 6th Congressional District, a seat previously held by Ron DeSantis, who vacated it to run for governor. In Congress, Waltz quickly established himself as a staunch conservative and a vocal supporter of President Trump. Waltz's rise through the Republican ranks is a testament to his political acumen and his ability to connect with voters. His military background and his hawkish foreign policy views resonate with the Republican base, and he is seen as a rising star in the party. His appointment as National Security Advisor is a significant step forward in his political career and positions him as a key figure in shaping U.S. foreign policy for years to come. Section 6. Echoes of the Bush Era. Waltz's prior government service. Mike Waltz's appointment as National Security Advisor evokes comparisons to the George W. Bush administration, where he served in various roles related to national security and defense policy. His prior experience in government, particularly in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, provides valuable insights into his likely approach to foreign policy challenges. Following the 9/11 attacks, Waltz was recalled to active duty and deployed to Afghanistan as a Green Beret. Upon his return from deployment, he joined the Bush administration as a defense policy advisor, where he worked on issues related to counterterrorism and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Waltz's time in the Bush administration shaped his views on the use of American military power and the importance of a strong national defense. He emerged from that experience as a staunch advocate for a robust U.S. military presence around the world and a proponent of preemptive action against perceived threats. While Waltz's foreign policy views align with the Bush administration's emphasis on national security and the projection of American power, it remains to be seen whether he will embrace the same degree of military interventionism that characterized the Bush era. Nonetheless, his prior government service provides a valuable window into his thinking and his likely approach to foreign policy challenges. Section 7. The Trump Doctrine Revisited. Continuity and Change in National Security. Mike Waltz's appointment as National Security Advisor raises questions about the future direction of the Trump Doctrine, a loosely defined foreign policy approach characterized by a disdain for multilateralism, a willingness to use tariffs as a bargaining chip, and an emphasis on transactional diplomacy. Waltz's hawkish views and his alignment with Trump's America First agenda suggest a continuation of key aspects of the Trump Doctrine. He is likely to reinforce Trump's skepticism of international institutions, his preference for bilateral agreements, and his willingness to use military force when deemed necessary to protect American interests. However, Waltz's appointment could also herald some shifts in emphasis within the Trump Doctrine. His deep knowledge of defense policy and his experience in the military could lead to a greater focus on strengthening the U.S. military and modernizing its capabilities. His hawkish stance on China in particular could translate into a more confrontational approach towards Beijing. Furthermore, Waltz's emphasis on strategic thinking and his understanding of grand strategy could bring a more coherent and consistent approach to U.S. foreign policy. While Trump's foreign policy has often been characterized by its unpredictability and ad hoc nature, Waltz's influence could lead to a more disciplined and strategic decision-making process. Section 8. A Waltz in the Global Arena. Implications for America's role in the world. Mike Waltz's appointment as National Security Advisor has significant implications for America's role in the world. His hawkish worldview, his commitment to American power, and his alignment with Trump's America First agenda suggest a more assertive and potentially more confrontational approach to foreign policy. Under Waltz's guidance, the U.S. is likely to prioritize its own interests above all else, even if it means straining relationships with allies or upending long-standing norms of international behavior. The emphasis will be on projecting American strength, deterring adversaries, and securing advantageous deals for the United States. Waltz's appointment could usher in a period of heightened tensions with rivals like China and Russia. His hawkish stance on these countries, combined with his belief in the need to counter their influence, could lead to a more confrontational dynamic and an increased risk of miscalculation. Furthermore, Waltz's appointment could have implications for America's global leadership. His skepticism of multilateralism and his preference for bilateral diplomacy could further erode America's standing in international institutions and undermine its ability to build consensus on pressing global challenges. The coming months and years will reveal the full extent of Waltz's influence on U.S. foreign policy. However, his appointment marks a significant shift in the direction of American foreign policy, one that is likely to have far-reaching consequences for the United States and the world.